This is the third video in the series What to Include in Every Lesson. Tip 5 is to guide student practice. This is something I've touched on in the last 2 tips, so won't spend too long repeating. Guided practice can include asking plenty of good, thought-provoking questions, asking students to summarise the learning so far, and giving them opportunities to practice what they've learnt whilst it's still fresh in their minds. Doing so helps students make fewer errors during independent tasks. Successful teachers spend more time guiding students' practice of new material. This is important as new material will be forgotten and not stored in long-term memory unless it is rehearsed sufficiently. Only then can it be retrieved and used to support new learning. One way to vary this and create more student interest is by asking different students to also come out and model whilst talking through their working. These can often provide the class with a differently worded, potentially even more student-friendly explanation. But be careful that the student isn't explaining it incorrectly. Effective teachers would clarify, ask questions, or amend this explanation if necessary, without giving them the answer. Tip 6 is to check for students' understanding often. Checking understanding at each point can help students understand and learn the material with fewer errors. You could give students plenty of practice, but if you don't know how many are getting answers correct, then you won't know when they are ready for independent activities. Constant checks limit the development of misconceptions. You may have explained something in the best way you could think of, but language is easily misinterpreted. Students may have gotten the answer correct, but could be using an imperfect method or reasoning that would not always work. Getting students to explain these processes to each other can highlight misconceptions and ensure all students are focused on the correct learning steps and reasons. In contrast, the least effective teachers in Rosenshine studies kept checking for understanding using vague questions, asking things like, "Are there any more questions?" or "Does everyone get this?" Tip 7 links to the last point and is to obtain a high success rate. Once you have checked students' understanding, make sure a high percentage are correct and understand the learning steps before moving on to the next one or beginning independent tasks. This may seem obvious, but the percentage needs to be higher than some may think. In Rosenshine cited studies, the most effective teachers gained success rates of over 82%, whilst the least effective teachers had 73% of students succeeding before independent work was started. The higher the success rate, the more students will be able to work independently and the less students will need support. There is an optimal success rate that seems to be about between 80 and 85%. This success rate will show that students are learning the material, but also that they are being challenged. If this was more like 100%, it may be that the material is too easy. If you are constantly having a 100% success rate, I would recommend finding ways to make the learning more challenging for students. If the students do not completely understand something before an independent practice, they will practice errors which will be difficult to overcome. So, the students who are not yet successful would work with the teacher and have more guided practice during this period, whilst everyone else gets on with independent tasks. Effective teachers continue guided practice and worked examples until this success rate is achieved. In the rare occasion a mistake is made and independent work is started too soon, effective teachers aren't afraid to stop independent work or to set no homework until learning is secure. This prevents further practice of errors.